Right here, sir. Here. Lose a few people at lunchtime. Anybody out there? Is that it? Everybody in here?
I'll go check, Chief.
I know they're not outside. Shit, it's freezing. All right, we'll go for about 45 or 50 minutes after lunch and take a break. Just I know after you eat, you sit down, it all settles. So we'll finish it. All right, who's that guy there? Anybody know who that is? Ray McCormick, 40 years in the FDNY. Not as humble as you get. That's how he is, just like he's standing there. I took this picture. I was riding with him about 17 years ago. And it's in his program because we just got back from a fire. A fire was out like 4 or 5 windows on a 6th floor of a 6-story apartment building. And in the FDNY, they cannot start water. That's what they refer to. So they stretch a line. They call it start water. Instead of like you and I say charge it or give me water, they call it start water. They can't start water in a tank line until the engine's hooked into a secure water source, a hydrant. But after this fire I rode with him, I was like, hey, Ray, you think the tank would have got that? He said, what do you mean? I said, I know you have a video hydrant, but based on you were the engine boss on that apartment fire, it was on the 6th floor, it was, whatever it was, an 800 square foot apartment. When the tank got it, I said, was the nozzle, to put that fire out, was the nozzle open more than about 2 or 3 minutes? He said, of course not. So even as impressive as it was, looking up with fire out like 4 or 5 windows on a 6th floor of a 6-story apartment building like they have in Harvard, which that's the standard fire he goes to, they hooked into a hydrant for, a secure water source, big building, that sort of thing, and I totally understand the concept. But the reality is, whether it's a 700 square foot apartment on a 6th floor, or a 700, 800 square foot mobile home, or a 500, 600, 700 square foot of fire, it's amazing how much fire you can put out for tank water. And so, what we're talking about, I was asking Ray, because they'll have frozen hydrants sometimes. In your career, Ray, I think you've had fires where you got there, and it was maybe an apartment with 2 or 3 rooms and a kitchen, and you stretch your line, you did a well hole stretch or whatever it is, and they get there and they're on the floor below. Like literally a dry line, what are they waiting for? They're waiting for them to get a positive water source in a hydrant before they start water. And they're sitting there, but it's stupid cold like it is here, and what could the first hydrant be? Frozen. And the second hydrant's frozen, and so now they're delayed, and so they can't call for water or start water until they get. So what's the fire continuing to do? Get bigger if it's on the top floor of a 6-story multiple dwelling, and you let it burn too long, where's it going to extend to? The cockloft, the attic space is what they call it. And now you've got a rocket fire on the top floor of a cockloft, and you'll see the beautiful pictures in Firehouse Magazine, Fire Engineering, where you get the tower ladders going, and Champo's up there doing that goofy ass truck shit, you know what I mean? And the reality is we would need all that stuff if they would have just started water 6 minutes ago and put water in a 2-bedroom apartment fire on the 6th floor, right? I'm not knocking it. I'm a huge fan of the FDNY. But just being close friends with him, I'll bounce that off because he works in the biggest fire department in the country in one of the most urban areas within New York City. And so him and I had a lot of conversations about that even the big cities sometimes should pony up or double up, 2 rigs, feeder lines that we do in suburban America, that there's something they can learn from it and understand. On this day, I learned a few things, but he definitely taught me that white stuff didn't come out of Cuba on a damn cigarette boat. That stuff came out of the sky, and I don't like it very much. So I just visited a few times a year. But if you don't know who Ray is, you should look him up. He's a very good friend of mine, but humble. Anybody remember in the early 90s in Midtown Manhattan when Kevin Shea was hanging from a rope on the side of the building? He was the guy holding it. He was the human harness. Had a harness on, with his feet against the parapet as Patty Brown was holding him down because he was about to go vertical over a wall. He was the guy that's holding it. So always kid around, and Kevin Shea, what a gentleman. He actually lived just about 2 hours east of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. But Kevin Shea, what a gentleman. And, Kevin Shea that day was kind of like the nozzle firefighter, right? Gets all the credit for water on the fire. But guess what? Somebody had to hold the rope. And when you're on the nozzle, put water on fire, somebody had to get you water, right? A driver operator. We talked about it yesterday. Don't ever underappreciate or underestimate a good driver operator on getting you the right amount of water, the right pressure, on your tap lines. You know what's going on. So I hit it a little bit, but this picture here, this really is the foundation for me. This picture, the four of these fine gentlemen, firefighters, the one that's right next to me is actually a battalion chief now. I actually relieved him. And from 2004 to 2007, they were my only engine company at night and weekends available outside volunteers, get the page, return, go to the firehouse, get gear, and come back. In a pretty suburban, urban area. I mean, 2 trauma centers this spring was first due, Principal of Christian College, UWF. So we're not talking about a rural area, we're talking about a pretty heavily populated area. And if we were transitioning, for lack of a better term, a Kentland, Maryland type operation to a fully staffed operation. And so for those first 3 years, then after that, Ladder 12 got put on duty, and Booth, the lieutenant, got transferred to Ladder 12, where I now operate out of. But those 3 years, for me, I built a foundation that makes me so passionate about fast water, booster tank, booster backup, and it makes me passionate that I don't have much sympathy when I travel. Someone says, well, I only have 5 people when I go to fire. Well, be lucky you have 5 people, right? I mean, because for 3 years, pretty much the 5 of us took care of the business for the first 10 to 12 minutes. And sometimes from start to finish, because, you know, if it was a night where the fire was 4 o'clock in the morning, they're running to 4 or 5 medical calls. I grew up as a volunteer, and you got to work the next day. What do you do as a volunteer if there's about 4 calls in one night? About 3 o'clock in the morning, you got to go to work. What do you finally do that minute or pay you? What do you do? Turn off. It's the reality, right? I grew up, I know. You know what I mean? And so there's nights where literally, you know, we got activated firearms, and this was the only paid company. This is why we transitioned to paid, is some of the volunteer stations were getting, you know, literally running 3,000 runs a year out of one firehouse. I mean, you can't work Monday through Friday to 5 and getting up that much 5 nights a week. And even if you could, if somebody sits in that bed next to you, they don't like it very much, right? So what was happening is, and this is no joke, if it was a busy night, you had a fire between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m., there was maybe nobody coming. They just got used to where, hey, this truck was guaranteed going, they'll take care of it. And I'm glad that happened. I'm glad that happened because it taught me time-delayed tactics. It taught me that I have to make sure that all 5 of us can multitask. It taught me that, yes, there's this great concept of what safety is on a fire ground. Oh, the driver can't leave the pump on. They just better watch the gauge, right? No, the reality is we're going to fires, and the driver better understand the sound of the pump. They better understand, you know, look at how much fire is it, how much water is it going to take. And literally in his head, he's calculating where he'll run back around and make sure shit okay about to happen thing. And then run over there and stretch a backup line to the front door, or maybe go to the back of the rig, he's grabbing a hydrant, runs with a ball valve over, with a 2.5, running down the street, hooks it up, runs back down the street, breaks it, hooks it to the auxiliary, runs back down the street, turns on the hydrant, because the driver's having to hand jack his own water supply. Or he's throwing that ladder and getting the saw at the bottom of the ladder, so when the crew goes in and knocks down that kitchen fire and extends to the attic, they come back out and the saw's running right there at the bottom of the ladder, they climb the ladder, they cut a hole in the roof. Is that ideal? No. Well, what do you think it made these 4 gentlemen? Good firefighters. And now he's a chief command of fires, and he understands time-delayed tactics. He understands foundational fire tactics, and we can't always strategically deploy based on Freed's book, John Norman's book, Chief Intuit's book, or the National Fire Academy standard way. I love it in this book, man. But I really like it at nighttime walking down the street, don't have a cold beer down the street. But at the end of the day, we take all that stuff and it's our foundational tactics, it's our thing. But there's a point where, and I haven't said that yesterday or today, but listen to me. There's a point where you achieve enough time in the fire service, enough experience, you go to enough classes, or you have to wake up one day and you have to decide to graduate. You have to wake up and you have to decide to graduate. And I would say it's disappointing how many people in the fire service, especially in officer roles, whether it be company officers, battalion chiefs, division chiefs, deputy chiefs, fire chiefs, that they never graduate in relation to fireground operations. They only know one way. It's the way they were taught from the get-go, right? When they were taught, it was like somebody etched it in concrete, and they don't understand that we can pour concrete over that and then put a new name in it. That yes, we want to have that foundational guidance. And the ISTA manual I talked about yesterday, the second due individual supply on the water supply. But if I've done a good enough job explaining to you why I believe in a booster backup on a private dwelling when it's 1, 2, or 3 rooms of fire based on staffing? Would you say that if you buy into that, and you've got 15 or 20 years on the job, and all you've ever known is a secondary risk has to catch a hydrant? That's exactly what the SOG says. Oh, what does the G stand for, SOG? Oh, see, when I was a kid, my dad was a chief, we called it an SOP, a procedure, and they changed it to a G. And sometimes we forget to realize that it's a guideline, as long as we have a reason, it's an educated reason, we actually thought about it, based on skills, knowledge, and ability, sometimes we deviate from that guideline based on the circumstances that are in front of us. See, the fire ground is not black and white. And if you're taking notes, write that down. The fire service is not a black and white situation. There's never, always, and never. There's never, always, and never. It just does not exist on a fire ground. It's an ever-changing event where truly chaotic control is how we mitigate the incident. And I said it yesterday, tactics put out fires, and action saves lives. Going back to yesterday's, the ones that went through yesterday, I think it's worth kind of reiterating. The ones that were yesterday, I talked about East Coast Command, Strategic Tactical Command, I talked about West Coast. The perception of the East Coast is chiefs are inside the fire building, run around doing a hula hoop, and they don't do anything. That's totally false, because New York City in the 60s and 70s would be across the street. Anybody ever seen their big boards they open up? They have magnets where everybody's at. They'll have chief's aides. In the 70s, they had mobile radios at portable command posts in the middle of the street where like motorcycle batteries would run. They were way ahead of the age. They don't get the proper credit that it's due. And then the perception or the thought process, the stereotype of people that live east of the Mississippi. What do you think every fireman east of the Mississippi thinks West Coast Command is? It's a chief in a buggy with a temperature at 71 degrees, 4 blocks away with the windows rolled up, looking the opposite direction, acting like an overpaid glorified dispatcher. That is the stereotype of anybody east of the Mississippi of what they think West Coast is. Now, do you think really either one of those is totally 100% the truth? No. Even if you went to Phoenix, you would see chiefs sometimes wearing bumper gear out on the fire ground once they had an incident with enough chiefs going on. And if you went to the East Coast, and you went to New York or Boston, you could see a chief standing at a command post. Now there's more times as a portable command post because they don't want to be strapped to a car based on the urban environment. They don't want a car in the middle of Fifth Avenue and Manhattan where they need 4 ladder trucks to reach the roof, right? Because they know that chief's cars don't put out fires. Firefighters do. And we go back to yesterday where the chief that scared the fire department more than they are the fire pulls up. And it's a 2-story private dwelling. Remember that yesterday? The smoke's kind of rolling out. And the chief pulls up and he backed up across the street and he looked through the windshield and he called dispatch and they say, oh, I've seen a 2-story wood frame private dwelling. We have light luminous smoke coming out about 2.5 inches below the header of the front door that's open with a pink Volkswagen in the front yard. Establishing Hickory Shores Command. Waiting on the arrival of the first division to come in. They will deploy a fast attack on Division 1 with an 1 3/4 attack line. And then 4 minutes later, that engine company shows up. They go through the front door and they find Mrs. Smith unconscious on the floor. And they pull her out 6 minutes later. But if that chief wasn't scared of the fire department, when he pulled up, the engine company was going to be 4 or 5 minutes later. What could the chief have done when he backed his $50,000 SUV in the driveway across the street? Could have got out, ran over, done a 360, maybe looked at the front window and said, shit, it's just a kitchen cabinet front car. Oh my God, that's somebody's foot. And just went and grabbed and pulled the lady out. The ones that weren't here yesterday. That same chief that scared the fire department, they won't get out of their chief's buggy, they parked across the street, looking through the windshield, using all their fancy terminology, trying to put out a fire with terminology, when they're off duty at home and somebody bangs on the door and says, hey, Mrs. Smith's house on fire across the street, what do? They run across the street, what do? They go run inside real quick and they pull out Mrs. Smith. Because they're off duty on their own time and they're not scared of the fire department. But yesterday when they're on duty, they're scared of the fire department. See, we, the fire service, are killing American civilians based on some of our cultural habits of being scared of the fire department and not scared of the fire. Raise your hand if when I told that yesterday, I just told it now, that makes sense to you, that rings true to you in the fire service. It's scary. It's scary. And we are the only ones that can fix that. To use common sense on what to do. And, you know, there's a time and a place, and I tell you, I reiterate, just looking at them, and the fact that when we pulled up on a fire, we either took action to control the fire, or it didn't go good. And look at the slide here. First 6 minutes to bingo. The guy on the far right, Jeff, used to film all the fires. He had an old VHS camera recorder. It sat up on the dash. Nothing like the GoPros of today. 04, 05, 06, and 07. He recorded all our fires. One December, he recorded 21 working fires in the month of December that just the 5 of us went to. A pretty good month. When we would go back to the firehouse and we would look at those videos and watch them, after a few years, the 5 of us basically came to an agreement that when we pulled up and nobody else was coming, the 5 of us, 750 gallons of water, a private dwelling, we had 6 minutes to get it right. That's what we had. We had 6 minutes to get it right. That's where this comes from. I didn't just make it up. We came up with, after whatever, 3 or 4 years, heavy fire activity. I mean, this is an urban area, like they would respond sometimes past 2 vacant firehouses. I love what y'all call it, Idaho, sleep station. We drive by, that's my new thing when we go around the country. We're gonna go by 2 sleep stations, that's it. Isn't that what y'all call it, like sleep stations where there are trucks there? We have those in Escambia County too. The public drives by one, they think, oh, that's great, I got a firehouse across from our house. They don't know it's a sleep station. I'm not making fun of you, we have those in Escambia County. We have, right now we have, I think 12 of them. But at the end of the day, we learned from going to those fires that when we got there, and we didn't stop watching, but anybody who didn't hear us benchmarks, where dispatch will say 10 minute, 20 minute, if we could go back, and we could tell dispatch, from the arrival at the time they were called 319, they're just called Squad 3 now. But if they were down on scene at the time, Escambia County Dispatch would have started a timer and they had called us on our radio and said, Escambia, Battalion 2, 6 minutes. Either the fire would be out, or we were burning that shit to the ground. That's what it came down to. It came down to what the 5 of us could do between multitasking. Firefighter would stretch a line to the front door. The irons firefighter would take a set of irons and a hook standard. They would force the front door, chock it open, by then they were going to flow pressure. He would go back out, fix the thing, a 6-foot hook by the front door. The officer would already done 360, back him up, they'd push in. The 4th firefighter, the door firefighter would just beat the hose. The driver would stretch the backup line, go back, charge it. So now that person, I talked about it yesterday, was feeding the hose, was now the 2nd line of the backup line. And if any given thing, they couldn't make the push, and I talked about yesterday, another company stretching the line to the rear. There was no other company. The 4th person took that line and drug it around to the back. And if it was too complicated, he left it there, and he went and got the bumper line, because it's dry, it would be easier to remove it to the rear, and just leave that in the front door. Why was he able to go get the bumper line and take it to the rear of the building? Anybody know why he was able to take the bumper line to the rear of the building?
Maybe the same length as.
Because it's the same length as our primary attack line. In 2002, 2003, after a serious uphill battle with other chiefs, white shirts, lieutenants, and firefighters, Escambia County converted all trash lines, bumper lines, to 150-foot attack lines with an equal nozzle to what's running on our crosslink, looking at 7/8 smooth bore 150/50. It wasn't easy. Why wasn't it easy? Because it always been 100 feet. And we always called it a trash line or a car fire line. And in reality, when the war was over, and the people that were honest, the ones who were against it, why were they against it going from 100 to 150 feet? Not just change or something else. Oh my God, it's 54 feet of hose we got. It really came down to that. Remember what I said yesterday? We don't even know how much we suck. We don't. We don't know how pathetic we are. We don't know how sidetracked we are by EMS and checking the boxes. We don't. It's scary. We got to look in the mirror and ask ourselves. Literally, there's a firefighter in Utah that was trapped on the 2nd floor. The 2 pre-connects were in the building. And they went to get the only line because it was suburban America and the first stretch every line until we run out of lines. And where does the supply line of suburban America come into? Traditionally, now hopefully after today you're going to change the way you do business. Historically, in suburban America, our 5-inch hose line, we did a Ford Light. What rig does that provide? Water to. The first rig. Raise your hand if historically that's what your organization does. 5-inch comes into the first rig, all your eggs in one basket until you run out of pre-connects. You could have 7 lines off of one rig. If that pump fails, you are SOL. Did you know there's no major urban city coast to coast in America that would ever operate that way? Did you know that? Why would no urban city allow 7 tack lines to come off of one pumper hooked to the one directly to a water supply? Why would no urban city do that? Huh? Bad risk management and history of pump failures and line failures. But a lot of us, we don't have enough fires over a history of sharing knowledge to know about the fire when things went bad, and they do, or it's shared. Does that make sense? Or culturally, they pass it on. Where you maybe have never had a problem, so you don't see a problem. You've never had a problem, so you don't see a problem. See, and that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I'm so interconnected coast to coast, that people share that with me, where you might not raise your hand, but when I get back, I'll get a message on Facebook, or I'll get an email from you and say, Chief, actually we did 2 years ago, we had a fire on whatever, on Broad Street, and went to 2 water 5-inch supply line right into the pump handle, like you said, blocked the street, we couldn't get the tower line in position, we stretched every pre-connect, we had a hose off at every discharge, and all of a sudden this has been through over the 5-inch, we lost water supply, or the pump operator just couldn't keep up with the 7 hose. I mean, the stories are over and over from all over the country that I get, but they're really never shared on the broad scope of the American fire service as a whole. We can't put our eggs in one basket. So we have to understand what's the time of bingo for you as a first new company, second new company. What's your maximum capabilities for your department? Right now, if you're taking notes, I want you to write down on a private dwelling what you think. It doesn't matter what do you think the number of firefighters you can get on a fire ground in the first 10 minutes or 15. You decide whether because if you're real rural, I think 15 is probably more of a fair time. Or 10 minutes. For me, in my court area, I get about 24 firefighters on a fire ground in about 10 to 12 minutes. Well, back in 2004, 15 minutes, maybe even longer, was being 4 other people, that's it. So I had to learn how to operate. And what happened was in 07, I got 1 more rig. In 08, I got another rig. In 09, I got 2 more rigs. So I went from being able to just fight fires with the 5 of us, and now we have 24 people on the fire ground in a short period of time. What I've been able to do is build out those assignments to where now the driver's not doing 7 things in the first 5 minutes. They're maybe doing 2 things in the first 5 minutes because there's another driver there a few minutes later. But what I want you to do is, whether you do it now or you do it tonight or tomorrow, you need to put pen to paper of how you're going to use your first 2 rigs, or your first 3 rigs, or your first 6 or 9. Let me make sure it's on there. And I give you an example. Now remember I told you yesterday, if you're some English guru, don't be reading my shit, because I don't care what comments are. Even though my wife's a teacher, I do all this stuff on my phone. And just make sure before I take this. This will give you an example of what I want you to do. Go to countyfiretactics.com. Top right, put in the first 3 with 3. I think that's it. Staff with the 3 locator. I'll scroll down, and it's a picture I got of a row house. That's me running around doing a 360. It's no, you wouldn't want to turn this into an English teacher, I can promise you that shit. But I wrote it on my phone one day sitting on an airplane. And I never proofread. My wife was so pissed off at me, a school teacher. But pull that up, top right, first 3 with 3. And I want you to do that tonight, tomorrow, next time you're on shift. Now yours is not going to be the first 3 with 3. Yours might be the first 2 with 4, like you write 2 and 2, or yours might be the first 4 with 8. It all depends on you. But that'll give you an idea of what I want you to do. And when I wrote that, I was flying at 30,000 feet. It was because my department just went through budget cuts. And basically what we knew we were about to see for the next year was no 4-person engine companies anymore. And there's a good chance for the first box alarm assignment based on fuel costs, based on brownouts, that I was going to be going to a fire, going to go backwards. It makes sense. I had this, I'd gone forward, and now it's going backwards. And it's harder to go backwards than it is to go forward if you're used to something. So we were going fires just having 4 on every rig. We were putting about, at the time, we were putting about 14 to 16 people on the fire ground. And then all of a sudden it was like, starting next week, we're gonna go to a fire with 3 engines and 9 people, that's gonna be it. And so I said, shit, I better put something right, and I got my battalion. I said, we gotta start thinking about how we're gonna make up for that fourth person that's not gonna be on that first rig. Yesterday I was talking about 4 people getting alive. So I was like, what the fourth person does is gonna be picked up by the second new engine's fire nozzle firefighter. And what the second new nozzle firefighter's job is gotta get picked up by the irons person, which will be picked up by the third. And we had to start putting pen to paper and doing little coffee table drills so we go to fires that we realized we weren't going to be operating like we have in the last 3 or 4 years at these fires. That we got to truly put pen to paper as an organization, figure it out. Was it you that said you have 5 on duty? 6 on duty? So for you, you would say, what are you going to do 6? Not uncommon for a department like a one-station suburban fire department. One of the chiefs up there was talking about they got 6,000 people in 3 square miles. If you're like a little city, like an island, kind of like Idaho Falls, and there's no real realistic mutual aid, or if that's where you're at, you come up with what your number is. It might be 5. My number was 5. When the first time I ever came up with seat assignments, it was based on the 4 of them, me, 750 gallons. And then we went to a few fires, we ran out of water, shit didn't go good, and we started figuring out when are we going to catch a line and lay it and leave it. What do I mean by lay it and leave it? That means we started going to fires probably around 05, there was a lot of fire that we knew was going to be beyond 750. They would pull up, the irons firefighter would jump off the rig, throw the hydrant back in a hydrant, pull the 5-inch off, and just throw it around the hydrant and jump back on the rig. Why did that firefighter get back on the rig? They couldn't afford to leave him there. But they couldn't afford to drive in and not lay a line. So they laid a line, so it's what we call lay it and leave it. So they laid that line in, they got there, they started attacking it. So the driver would go to the back of the rig and they would take the 5-inch off, break it, hook it into the piston intake. So when they ran down the street, they didn't have to drag any hose. When they ran down the street, when they got done hooking it up, what could they immediately do because they already hooked it up there? Turn it on. All that wasn't by accident, that was by drilling and figuring out how we were going to make the most of what we had. Coming up with a system of what we were going to do. Man, the driver, back when we were operating, I kid around with some of these new kids nowadays and say, shit, man, the days of 319 and 5 of us could do more than 15 of y'all can now. Right? Because you get spoiled. And then you start getting into, well, you can't do that, you don't have this, and all that kind of stuff. And we just masked, and then we came up, and I'm going to cover it later this afternoon. And we started figuring out, if nobody else is coming, we got to push in. How are we going to search? So we came up with what's called the Fast Attack Engine Company search, where they would push in to a kitchen or a bedroom fire. As soon as they knocked the fire down and the officer scanned it, the nozzle firefighter stayed with the nozzle to make sure it didn't light back off. And the officer got on the radio and said, let's do a search. Just like that, let's do a search. So the fire's at the front door, the speed, he was done speeding, because the line had gone as far as it needed to go. So he moved in, and now one of the backup office, the backup firefighter is the officer and the door firefighter would come. The 2-person search team, well, the nozzle firefighter stayed there who has a radio to make sure it doesn't flare back up as a whole. And so now a 4-person company would stretch a line, push in a building, knock the fire down with a backup line at the front door, cross-staffed by the door firefighter. And then when the fire was knocked down, the officer and the firefighter would become a 2-person search team under the protection of the nozzle firefighter standing with the nozzle, and the driver operator always visually being able to see the front door to see if what? If smoke conditions were to get worse, he or she could call to the nozzle firefighter and the officer, and also go run from the outside and pick up the nozzle if they had to and flow water or something crazy happen. Is that an ideal world? No, it's not an ideal world. But I tell you what it did, created some pretty badass firefighters as a whole. But our foundation when we went to a fire was that everything was about water. And this right here is right out of the Oscar Armstrong report. If you're into reading, if you're looking to standardize your operations, one of the best line of duty death reports you can read is the Oscar Armstrong report. All you have to do is go to Google, Cincinnati Fire Department, put in Oscar Armstrong. March 2003. The time it was definitely one of the best line of duty death reports because it wasn't done by Nosh and this and blaming incident command and all that other crap they blame every single fire on. If a firefighter pushes into a building and they never open the nozzle, it's black smoke to the floor, and it flashes over on them, does a lack of incident command have anything to do with that? That's a lack to do with tactics, is what it has. That's a lack of that nozzle firefighter being properly trained, that they're in a bad environment, and and they aren't properly reading the saturation rate of the heat based on their live burns that we talked about yesterday. Oh, no, but they're not the standard nozzle report who they're going to apply. That's in command, accountability tax. No, it really came down to nozzle water. I never opened the nozzle to flow water to prevent the flashover. But I don't want to get off on that track, man, because I really go down for a crazy road. But Oscar Armstrong report's pretty awesome. It really is. It's up there with the work to do away from San Francisco. But this right here, first line sets the stage. Proper hose deployment is crucial to saving lives and protecting firefighters during interior operations. A well-placed, appropriately staffed attack line putting water on a fire saves more lives than any other single fireground function. Now, what else I'll tell you that an attack line inside of a building, even more so a larger house, you start getting up 3,000 square foot plus, you get into 2-3 story houses, 4,000 square feet, even smaller houses, when conditions are pretty crazy, and especially if you put like 2 or 3 lines in a building, and conditions are visibility is pretty low. Firefighters that are conducting a search, what do you think a hose line coming down a hallway when they're coming and going from different rooms, what does that charged hose line do for a 2-person search team? Huh? Orientation and confidence. Orientation and confidence. Orientation and confidence. When I was working on a heavy rescue in Pensacola, I'll be flat up honest with you. I didn't want to die, but I was an aggressive firefighter. If I was going in a building, I stayed as oriented as I could, but when there was a hose line, when I was going to a bedroom and a hose line past the bedroom, I was more likely to find somebody in a shorter period of time because I could go faster. Because I was boom, boom, boom. When I came out, what did that hose line do? Bam, oriented me right off the bat. And then go across the hallway. It literally made me feel like Superman when there was a hose line in the building in any area that I was searching. Because any given time, if I got disoriented, can you get turned around in a 10x10 room? Guaranteed. But I know that hose line was there, and if I left my Halligan tool, my 30-inch crowbar in the doorway, in case I found a jack and chill, I was always come back and say, oh yeah, that's my doorway, it's my Halligan right here, right? Not like a $225 floor reminder of where I'm going. So just thinking about that hose line's more than, it's not just about, what I've said at least 10 times, it's the equalizer, it maintains and creates survival states. It gives confidence to the search team. Understanding the nozzle reaction of water flow. What's the American fire? Well, we've been talking about yesterday and today. The American fire is where it's worth the risk. The American fire is where we can make a difference. But it is also where our largest number of fireground line of duty deaths are because of the frequency of them and how many we go to. But if you go to a commercial building fire and you break the threshold, based on Chief Vincent Dunn's information, you're 4 times more likely to get injured or killed every time you enter a commercial building, per the number of fires you go to. Because we historically, as we said yesterday, when you go in a commercial building, you're going to deploy your residential attack experiences in a commercial setting. And the biggest thing you have to do when you go to a commercial building is remind yourself this is not residential. You got to engage those commercial rules of engagement. We're not going to operate with a booster tank. We're going to have a sustained supply. We're going to most likely try to get a full alarm assignment there before we engage. So we have an entire assignment there before, the bell's already ringing on the first 2 company before the last company gets there. You really don't have a first alarm assignment fighting the fire. Making sure you have a 4-person RIT team, you have enough people to force the front door, the back door, enough people to do vertical ventilation if necessary, and so on and so forth. But the American fire is this right here, a booster line. And I'm going to back up again, but it's extinguished with what or less than 1 attack line. Extinguished with onboard water supply, and the American fires were 75% of all our fire fatalities are. 2,000 to 3,000 a year. How many of you get the U.S. Fire Administration weekly email on how many civilians died in a fire last week? It's a reminder that people are dying every single week across the country, and we do. So if you get that email and you get the line of duty deaths, you'll see that there's a shitload more people dying in fires than we are as a whole. But this is the American fire. Private dwelling cars in a driveway, engine company pulls up. That's me right there on the front left. Engine 16 stretched the primary line. That's that yellow line right there. That red line is dry. The guy's about to come back and get it. So far right, you see the guy going in the rear. We're going to take a line down the T-delta side. But the primary attack line is going to go through that front door, right over my helmet right there. It's going to go right in the front door. Now, if this yard is like 4 cars in a driveway, 2 families live in this house. Right after Hurricane Ivan devastated our county, so it's not uncommon to go to a house where for two families rather than one, because one family's house was destroyed, they moved in with their brother, sister, aunt, uncle, mom, dad, whatever. And so we pull up, man, and there's literally a family standing across the street, like in the road. The father's in his boxer shorts. I mean, outside, just like, they barely got it to skin. The only reason they got no smoke detectors is a teenager was sleeping on a couch in the living room, and he literally woke up and saw it and ran through the house screaming to get everybody out. If not, we probably would have had about 7 to 8 people, fatalities in this one fire. But when we get there, we don't know. They can't tell us if everybody's out. They're all kind of confused because of how many people are sleeping there, and teenage friends have friends. So we got to perform an aggressive search. So that engine company stretches a line. When they get to that front door, which is kind of a setback porch, literally the nozzle firefighter with a 7/8 pulling 150 gallons a minute is against the wall like this. And he knows that's a wall. On the left is that bedroom where you see that awning at. Most of this fire was this living room. To the right is the kitchen, and then to the far right of the photo is the dining room. When he's at the front door, he can almost hit what? 3 rooms of fire based on a floor plan. He opens that smooth door and he starts high, goes across the ceiling, takes his hand off the nozzle, puts it on the hose, and he knows this is no penciling crap. You know what I mean when I say penciling? You want to kill this thing. This isn't. This is like open it up and unload the 50 cal on it. He runs it across the ceiling, back and forth, making the most of his water use, and a booster tank. The first 2 engine company with a tank of water didn't fully put it out, but what did it do to it? It knocked it down. That line pushes in, and that's me on the thing there, just kind of looking at him, talking to him, saying, hey, this, you know what, high probability is somebody trapped, get a search. This guy's pulling some more hose, they're knocking it down. 2 firefighters have already made it in. They knew they had to go about 5 to 10 feet. They're going to find a hallway. They know there's nothing survivable to the right. They get to the left, and in the front left of this photo is where an add-on is. It looks like it used to be a 2-car garage, but it's actually where 4 kids were sleeping. Luckily, they made it out. And back there is one of just hundreds of fires where companies will pull up and they'll fast attack off a 690 to a 750 gallon booster tank, because that's 90% of all the fires and how we handle it. Understand today is 340 to flash over. It was 4 to 10 minutes. And understanding what I talked about. Look at this bottom thing right here. NFPA 1710. 14 firefighters within 9 minutes of dispatch of the water supply, 400 GPM. And it's what I really want you to look at. And an initial flow of 300 gallons a minute via 2 hand lines. What's 300 divided by 2? So right there, a court of law, that's where they pull an NFPA standard and say, that's the standard right there. So that's where my 150 is already backed up even by NFPA as a whole, plus articles that date back to the early 90s on fire flow formulas of what we're doing. Yes, private dwellings, it's worth the risk to be aggressive, but we also do have to respect private dwellings and the fact of how aggressive we are, that we can have big hazards in small packages. I have a slide in one of my newer programs that is this exact slide, but it has probably, I don't know, 15 names on it in red. And whether it's that slide with the 15 names or these 3 names, what do you think all of them have in common that I've already talked about yesterday and today? What do you think all of them have in common? Nozzle firefighter and the first 2 engine company arrived into a house less than 2,000 square feet. So as much as I talked to you yesterday and today about being aggressive, about the booster tank attack, we're going to have more names go up there. But I will tell you this, whether it's Maurice, Pensacola, where I work, Oscar Armstrong in Cincinnati on Laidlaw Avenue, or Stephen Solomon in the 900 square foot vacant duplex with a mattress, when he pulled up with 4 people on engine 16, 4 on truck 16, 8 of them on the initial attack. Almost all of them, when you read them, you study them, talk to the firefighters in the department, firefighters with the fire. You know what pretty much all of them say the fire was? A bread and butter fire. That's what they say. So bread and butter fire. So what I don't like is when the people misalign with our responsibility, misalign with our calling, misalign with objectives of life and property, and they want to use these line of duty desks, they don't really know shit about them, and they want to distort them and talk about how we shouldn't have been in there, and they want to talk about putting us before them. They really don't know a damn thing about the residential line of duty desks, or they wouldn't be spewing that BS. Because the reality is these three, and most all of them, were bread and butter fires. It's just hard to look in the mirror and say, you know what? We failed that day. We failed on just basic tactics on making sure that everybody on our job knows that, you know what, we don't just take windows on accident anymore. We gotta make sure we coordinate with command. We gotta make sure that more so than ever before, yes, ventilation is needed, but it's more complex. We gotta make sure we gotta cool that environment before we get an oxygen. We gotta know when, where, and why, and what type of ventilation we're gonna use in relation to water application, which is what the definition of a coordinated fire attack is. These firefighters right here, man, when the fire was over, most of them, when the fire was out from the street, sometimes you can't even tell it was a fire there. It was like the one I showed you yesterday, 800 East Hatton Street, where fire was out one window. A lot of times these houses, you could literally fix them. They were just, you know what I mean? Like it could be repaired. It was a fire event. It wasn't like the 23rd Street collapse in the 60s where the whole building fell down, or the Queen Anne Victorian collapse in Worcester. It was a fire event where we failed to apply water sooner than later. You know, a lot of us that communicate around the country, we'll never have an exact answer, but our big thing that we want to know about each and every time one of these happens was, did the nozzle firefighter ever even open the nozzle? And we're pretty confident most of the time they never even open the nozzle. Because through the fires that we go to, through the fires that a lot of us have been to, we know that when a nozzle is open, flowing 2.5 gallons a second or greater, a silver bullet, you can literally walk into a front door just like that. Is that a pretty good bit of fire? Now, if all of that fire was just black smoke, I talked about this yesterday, so a few things I really want to send you home with. If all of that was black smoke, if that was just black smoke coming out those windows, how many of you have known a firefighter in your career that without opening the nozzle sometime in the past would push through the front door if that was not, there's no more stuff, it was just black smoke? Raise your hand. Right? And in reality, should we be more scared of the black smoke than we are of that? Because that's a no-brainer that we're going to open and paint it out, right? But if you saw black smoke instead of all that orange stuff, what should we be doing at the front door before entry? The exact same thing you would do with this fire. That's the message I want to paint to you. The exact same thing. And if we pulled up to the front door and it was big black cotton candy coming out the front door, and I opened that 7/8 smooth bore, that 150 at 50, 2.5 gallons a second, and I opened it up, and the nozzle reaction allowed me to put my hand on the hose like I should. And I'm getting excited for a second, man. Not too excited. I don't have to change the clothes here, but anyways. Like moving in, flowing water. As fast as I could move, what would 2.5 gallons a second shoot water 50, 60 feet out in front of me? It would wipe out and kill fire faster than I could move that inch 3/4. Would you agree with that? I want to tell you about a test I did down in Delmore, Colorado, probably about 5 years ago. I had a 3-bedroom, I think it might be just a 1-bath. 3-bedroom, 1-bath, not real big, 1,600 square feet or so. And in South Colorado, Delmore, about 4 hours south of Denver. Packed a living room with 2 couches. One of them was standing up. No, this was not EPA certified, so don't worry about that. Just listen to my story, okay? We're in rural Colorado. We had a couch standing up like this, a love seat, had a couple of box springs and mattresses. We loaded this room down. I mean, we loaded it down with fuel packages. Had 2 double hung windows on the Charlie side, 2 double hung windows on the Delta side. We set up some video. We lit it off. We saw it burning. And smoke started backing down, until through those 2 sets of double hung windows, it was blacked out. We had a door open over the side carport. And black smoke was coming out like cotton candy. And it was literally churning, like literally just. And then all of a sudden, it went to just suck it in, like it was sucking for oxygen, and then it would burp out. You know what I'm talking about? It would suck in, and it would burp out. And I was on the nozzle. One of my right-hand man guys, Matt Scallon, was my backup. J.J. Cassetta from Orlando, who was actually at the fire when he worked in Cincinnati, works in Orlando, now Oscar Armstrong. He's the door guy. We had a red team. Shannon Stone, the guy that just did that podcast, he was in command. And we were doing a fire behavior class for all the volunteer fire departments in South Colorado. And what I wanted them to see in person, because my job has been on there 8 consecutive years, is they're very aggressive down there. Is I wanted them to understand, no matter how aggressive they are, I would rather them put more water in the house than they needed. So that stuff was chugging out the door, man, literally just chugging. And before I even got to the threshold, they had a large observation group. What I do with my nozzle? I opened it up. I put my hand back on the hose. On the outside, a clear wire where they could see me. And I was putting water in the ceiling. They saw me working that line, just like we do. How many been to a nozzle forward class or, engine company class where you just literally push? And I went down the hallway with my shoulder against the wall. The hallway went real long, probably about 12, maybe 14 feet hallway. And I'm just flowing, and I'm flowing. I never shut it down. And I push into that living room, dining room area, and I'm flowing water. I can't see my hand in front of my face. Flowing. I get in that room and I'm flowing, I never shut it down. I can hear the glass breaking or the windows are breaking, but they never self-vented because there were so much fuel packages. When the fire grew, it hyperventilated. Fuel packages burned so rapidly, like the flash over 3 minutes and 40, it sucked all the oxygen. And even with that door open, what was that door not providing enough of? Oxygen for the amount of fuel packages and the square footage of where they were arranged. And the window took that glass and it blew it out. When the smoke lifted, the entire living room, dining room, kitchen, and hallway was incinerated. All the way down the hallway was completely incinerated. I walked outside. Everybody came together. I took my white helmet off. I stood on the hood. I took just a rag and I wiped my entire helmet down. It was like brand new before I went in. When I got done wiping it off, it looked brand new. My gear was on, like not burned or anything. Smoke up, they walked through and they saw that room was, man, like a flashover, incinerated room. They got to see the windows from the hose line bust out. What message do you think they got from that? Flow water. And then you can almost go to the gates of hell, flowing 2.5 gallons a second, you can almost put it out. My message to them was that if you'd gone to that door and you'd not opened the nozzle and you'd have pushed in 10 to 12 feet, by the time that you felt your gear was hot, what would have already happened to it? It'd be burned. And my message was, don't be scared, open that nozzle and flow. Firefighters don't drown in private homes, they burn up in private homes. And the message to them was, as extreme as the fire conditions were, as extreme as the smoke was, when I was flowing water, when I was done, I wiped my helmet off, my helmet wasn't burned. The texture heaters weren't melting. And I was trying to send a message that melted and burned up the helmet. Doesn't matter. If you're truly flowing water and you're venting properly, whether you're taking the windows or your hose line or straight stream is taking the glass. Because if a straight stream from a smooth bore or a fog nozzle on straight stream takes glass, most likely once the heat already got to the glass, so the stream break the glass. It's weakened, right? And so that's where you know. So think of this. We're going to take a break here in a second. If my stream takes the window, what does that mean I've already applied? That's coordinated fire. And we need to start re-engaging and consider hydraulic ventilation. You knock a room down, whether you take a window with a halyard or you take a glass, it's just going down a little fog pattern. If it's a smooth bore, all you do is spin the tips off, crank it half throttle, and that'll move just as much air as a fog nozzle from an open about 1.3 waterway of a smooth bore. Hydraulic ventilation. Hydraulic ventilation will move just as much as a fog nozzle, and per room, and share with us real quick, I'm just curious. And what did it do? It's awesome. And if you, it's the biggest defense mechanism, and so much that UL, Steve Kerber, and we were burning a bunch of houses. One of them was, we turn this shit off. One of them was a big white house with a doctor's in Sydney, Ohio. And it's actually on Facebook. If you go to UL, you go look it up. And we were doing some burns. I'm on a coordinated fire attack panel. And I always say take the tip off. But I'm glad you said that because they didn't take the tips off. And they were measuring, UL, Steve Kerber, Dave Mandrikowski, Mike Hoff, all of us, were measuring hydraulic ventilation from a smooth bore or a straight string on straight string. Not even doing a fog. Because what all the instrumentals make us think we have to have? A fog, a power plant. And so UL, as much as everybody wanted to jump on that exterior fire attack industry, that's going to become consumed with it. Most of those back and do what to the most recent study? The interior fire attack study, which tells us that's the best place. And I don't know my sidetrack, man, boy, I really, I'll run out of my coupons on 4 letter words. But, no, that is a good point, and I want you to go, since we know you guys are talking about it, go look on UL's website and pull it up, and you'll be able to see it, and it actually has the video of them doing studies using a smooth board, where it's on a solid string, or a smooth board where they broke the string, and or a fog nozzle on a straight string, and the amount of air we use. I was just up in Ohio, and we did some strip mall burns, and we did the same thing. And I think, remember I was talking about 20 minutes ago, I was talking about graduating. I think some of us are going to graduate back to the old school. We're going to graduate back, because if you've been on the job a long time, that's the standard way we did it back when I was a kid, is you just hydraulically ventilated every room. And then we became consumed in the 90s with positive pressure attack. And everything's been a fad, it seems like it's going right back to it. But if you have what we've been talking about primarily, bread and butter fires, if we have a 1 or 2 room fire, do we necessarily need a fan to push that smoke throughout the whole house? Maybe not. You might just isolate that 1 room. Or if you're doing, remember a minute ago I talked about time to bingo, and it was just the 5 of us, and they get in there, and we're doing many things, and they get in that 1 room. Man, they might literally, I don't advocate it, but if you have a tool, trust me, a lot of us came to a firefighter book a lot of glass with a stuff-made smooth board tip. Like bang, bang, clear it out, you know what I mean? Be careful, you don't bust your hose, and then just open that nozzle up and clear it out. So, that's the thing that we, the fire service, have to stop being zeroed in on one way, of always positive pressure attack, or always vertical ventilation, or always horizontal ventilation, or always negative pressure, or always hydraulic. Open it up. Before we take our first break after lunch, anybody have any questions? Awesome. Take a break. Come back and we'll hit it some more. And for whoever wasn't here yesterday, we'll be out of here by 4 o'clock. I know it's Sunday, some of you have been here for 2 days, so just for planning purposes, I promise you I won't keep you past 4 o'clock.